10 years ago, a game called Uncharted Drake's Fortune entered the video game world and marked the beginning of one of the most beloved action-adventure series of all time. A series that remains just as praised and successful today as it was 10 years ago. When I first picked up a copy of Uncharted Drake's Fortune and Among Thieves, I had no idea how dramatically the adventures of Nathan Drake would change my perception of video games. I share a special bond with Naughty Dog as a developer because the release of Uncharted kindled my passion for games. In an instant, a medium I didn't take seriously turned into an art form near and dear to my heart. Uncharted opened my eyes to the storytelling potential of video games. Today, Uncharted celebrates its 10th anniversary, a more than fitting occasion to dwell in the past and reminisce about the things that made the franchise unique. I, for one, are convinced that Uncharted lives up to its reputation as one of the most important video game franchises of the last decade. Why is Uncharted such an important series for the video game world, and why is the latest Call of Duty the perfect counterexample for everything that Uncharted does right? Let's find out.
Jump!
The Golden Man! Shambhala. The wish-fulfilling jewel. The Atlantis of the Sands.
City of immeasurable wealth, destroyed by God for its arrogance. Here's the thing, kid. We don't get to choose how we start in this life. Real greatness, it's what you do with the hand you're dealt. I see great things in our future, kid. Great things.
Astonishingly enough, this critically acclaimed video game giant named Uncharted almost sealed the fate of Naughty Dog as a studio. There's a certain irony in the fact that the exact same franchise that catapulted Naughty Dog into the Olympus of video game developers almost killed the studio. In the end, Uncharted immortalized Naughty Dog, made them a prestigious, worshipped name among gamers, but during the development of Drake's Fortune, all this seemed like a distant dream. One of the major difficulties Naughty Dog encountered during Uncharted's development was the shift from cartoony and extremely stylized games to modeling detailed human beings and a more or less grounded game world. Many developers were able to strive for more realistic game concepts and grounded stories thanks to the next console generation, which finally enabled the creation of more or less believable human beings as protagonists. They could use higher polygon counts and better shaders to model human faces with detailed facial expressions. During the development of Uncharted Drake's Fortune, the team put a lot of emphasis on character animation, a discipline Naughty Dog perfected over the years up to a point of detail and realism no one can rival. You can say what you want about Naughty Dog, but if there's one thing they are nailing every single time, then it's character movement and facial expressions. The gaming landscape landscape favored assassins, super soldiers and battle-hardened witchers instead of talking animals embedded in cartoony worlds. If you ask me, the powerful new hardware had a negative side effect. While it was great that developers could finally strive for more realism in their games, the new consoles took a toll on the color palette of most successful AAA games. Suddenly, the Gears of War color combination of stone gray and dirt brown became the dominant visual trend. Human protagonists looked more authentic than ever, but the bleak, colorless worlds they were placed in got out of hand. Uncharted's light-hearted, humorous atmosphere and vibrant, colorful art design stood out of the crowd, defying the industry trend. One of the features that makes Uncharted special is the light-hearted and adventurous atmosphere, the pulp spirit, so to speak. The art department tried to transfer colorful cover art of pulp magazines into the game. They used vibrant colors and put Nathan Drake in exotic landscapes in order to assure a bright color palette accompanied by a certain lightness of tone, equally as important for the reimagining of the classic pulp action-adventure genre. Uncharted's world feels bright, cheerful, colorful and humorous. These characteristics helped Naughty Dog to create a franchise that stood out in the market, since a lot of games, especially during the first years of the last console generation, tended to be dark, gritty and grey in their presentation. I have to say, in terms of massive AAA productions, I don't know any other studio whose final game aesthetic stays so close to initial artwork depictions. It's difficult to explain, but Naughty Dog's colorful and vibrant art style, which probably is a leftover from their old Crash Bandicoot and Jak and Daxter days, is extremely unique and distinctive, allowing them to achieve this particular artwork or painting style. It definitely explains why even a game like The Last of Us, that deals with the loss of humanity and a return to savagery, is set against this beautiful and colorful world reclaimed by nature. Uncharted looks like a painting come to life at times. Personally, I hope Naughty Dog never tries to abandon its lush and colorful world with vibrancy in all textures. It always made their games special, and for me, it's one of the most enjoyable parts. I could talk for hours about Naughty Dog's ability to create graphical benchmarks and push console hardware to its limits. However, I wouldn't tell you anything you don't already know. In order to pay tribute to Uncharted's 10-year-old history, I ask myself, what makes Uncharted special? An important question if you asked me, because there are quite a lot of critics who don't feel the same way about Uncharted. In fact, some people claim there's nothing special and worthwhile about Uncharted. The 5 most common complaints regarding Uncharted, coming up and up again, are the following. 1. It's nothing more but an Indiana Jones ripoff, lacking its own identity. 2. The third-person shooting and the gameplay in general is mediocre at best. 3. Uncharted's story is unsurprising and chock-full of adventure movie tropes. 4. Nathan Drake's likable personality and the thousands of enemies the player is forced to kill over the course of the game create ludonarrative dissonance. And 5. Uncharted is lacking player control. Most of the time you are just clicking your way through uninspired QuickTime events. At first glance, all of these points seem self-evident and like justified criticism. But for someone like me, someone who spends so much time with Uncharted, most of these accusations don't hold water. Let's have a look at the first statement. Uncharted is nothing more but an Indiana Jones ripoff. That's such a lazy comment. I disagree wholeheartedly. Of course, Uncharted quotes dozens of already existing and well-known adventure movies. If you want to create a pulp adventure series, naturally you take inspiration from all the great works operating in the same genre. Every light-hearted adventure movie or game is going to remind you of Indiana Jones because those movies established many action-adventure genre tropes and are deeply ingrained in pop culture. So accusing Uncharted for reminding you of Indiana Jones is a silly criticism. In my opinion, the characters in Uncharted have enough personality of their own to give Uncharted its own identity. Sully, Elena and Nate are unique. Ultimately, everyone has to decide for himself whether Uncharted is a homage or a copycat. Granted, the line between a homage and a simple copy is difficult to define, but to deem Uncharted an Indiana Jones ripoff just because it crawls all the great adventure stories that came before it is exaggerated if you ask me. The recreation of pulp adventure tropes and genre conventions are a vital part of Uncharted's story structure, characters and set pieces. Every Indiana Jones inspired adventure tale will feature action moments like jumping and climbing while barely falling to your death, gunfights and bare-fisted fights against goons, outsmarting Asian death traps, solving complex riddles in order to get one step closer to the desired treasure, and most importantly, chasing someone or being chased. Many people hate the abundance of pulp adventure tropes in Uncharted. I, on the other hand, adore it. From the very first mission in Drake's Fortune, where you find the coffin of Sir Francis Drake, blast your way through hordes of pirates, and are rescued by cigar-smoking, grandpa joke-dropping, con-man badass Victor Goddamn Sullivan, Uncharted knew exactly what it wanted to be. It wanted to portray a world where villains are truly bad, good guys always win, and where you can't walk 1 feet without stumbling into yet another action-packed adventure story. Which brings us to the second point. The third-person shooting is mediocre. You know what? I completely agree. The gameplay improved drastically since Uncharted 4. The level structure and new tools like the grappling hook give the player far more agility and space during combat, and stealth abilities finally grant you the option to pass over certain shooting sections. Despite all that, it is undisputable that Uncharted's third-person cover-based shooting doesn't reinvent the wheel. I would disagree with anyone who claims Uncharted's gameplay is horrible. If you believe that, you clearly never played a game with truly atrocious shooting mechanics. But yes, the climbing and shooting sections in Uncharted aren't the pinnacle of game design. However, if people are allowed to claim that games like Mass Effect, Zelda Breath of the Wild and Dark Souls should be considered as video game milestones, then I certainly have the right to say the same about Uncharted. I don't know if you ever noticed, but the cover-based shooting in Mass Effect isn't the creme de la creme as well. Breath of the Wild's combat system has tremendous balance issues, and I think I don't have to say much more about the notorious camera and frame rate issues in Dark Souls. Despite all of that, most gamers seem to agree that certain aspects regarding these games are so incredible that their countless weaknesses are not enough to destroy their overall brilliance. I think the same applies to Uncharted. Mediocre third-person shooting is not enough to declare the phenomenal presentation, well-written dialogues, iconic set pieces, and lovable characters null and void. What about the third point? I'll have to agree once again. Yes, Uncharted's story structure is unsurprising for the most part, but it never bothered me. The character interactions always were far more important to me. I never had the desire to see mind-blowing plot twists in Uncharted. Again, it might sound like a cop-out answer, but in all seriousness, I always adored the pulp adventure spirit of Uncharted. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have to talk about what most likely is the most widely used criticism in regards to Uncharted's wisecracking protagonist, Nathan Drake. Probably because people like to use the word Ludonarrative Dissonance so much, in the hopes it makes them appear wickedly smart. To be brief, Ludonarrative Dissonance refers to instances where a game's narrative and its gameplay are in conflict. In the case of Uncharted, Ludonarrative Dissonance is used to highlight the dissonance between Nathan Drake as being presented as a charming, likable adventurer with a heart of gold, and the constant killing sprees you have to commit as a player. People use Uncharted as one of the most prominent examples for the disruptive effects of ludonarrative dissonance. As you may have guessed, I disagree. I would even go as far to say that this opinion is fucking stupid. Did Nathan Drake kill hundreds of people during his treasure hunts? Yes, he did. Does this mean his kill count stands in stark contrast to his likable and funny personality? I would say Not really. Let us compare Nathan Drake's kill count with the one of Indiana Jones. Fortunately, IGN has spared me a lot of work and already made such a comparison. All 4 Indiana Jones movies are about as long as Uncharted Drake's Fortune. Indy killed 67 people, while Nathan Drake managed to kill 610 in the same amount of screen time, so roughly 10 times as many. Still, Indiana Jones murdered 67 people. Let's be honest, both of them are mass murderers judging by the numbers, but I've never heard complaints about the disconnection between Indy's good-hearted personality and his insanely high body count. And that's totally fine. If you didn't burst into tears when Indy steamrolled the blonde henchman in Last Crusade, that's fine. Seriously, you are not supposed to feel empathy for goons in light-hearted pulp adventures. It is a genre trait that the heroes fight against truly evil villains without redeeming qualities and against equally as evil henchmen. They all look the same for a reason. Nathan and Indy are pursued by Russian mercenaries, Nazis and pirates, for Christ's sake. Last but not least, many self-proclaimed video game purists, for lack of a better word, deem Uncharted a succession of button-mashing sequences without any real player control. I can't even begin to tell you how ignorant, unfair and ridiculous this statement is. It doesn't do Uncharted justice. I know exactly what people mean when they say Uncharted is lacking player control. They take a quick look at the number of cutscenes and cinematic presentation and quickly decide that bombastic set pieces like the train level, airplane crash or truck chase in Uncharted 4 are nothing more but glorified QuickTime events. The reason why that's exactly what set pieces in Uncharted are not can be best showcased when we compare a couple of action sequences from the recently released Call of Duty World War II and iconic similar moments from Uncharted games, because there's a lot you can compare. Uncharted 2 and Uncharted The Lost Legacy feature action-packed train levels, so does Call of Duty World War II. At one point you are thrown into a chaotic jeep chase, which of course reminds of Uncharted 4's most impressive action scene. And there's a bell tower scene comparable to Uncharted 4 as well. Here's how they differ. In both games the presentation is epic as fuck. Buildings crumble, cars explode, trains crash and so on and so forth. If Uncharted set pieces are lacking player control, then why the heck were millions of gamers blown away by the infamous train level in Among Thieves, the turning ship and crashing plane in Drake's Deception, and truck chase in A Thief's End? Why is there no one who managed to impress us in the same way as Naughty Dog when it comes to action-packed set pieces? Well, because during set piece moments in Uncharted, we are in full player control, and it looks breathtaking regardless. In general, cinematic action sequences in video games are indeed lacking player control, and tend to be more cutscene than actual interactive experiences, as Call of Duty World War II proves. Pick any action scene in Call of Duty World War II and compare it to the amount of avatar control you have in Uncharted. As soon as you enter the Jeep, you are deprived of the same range of gameplay possibilities you have during the rest of the game. You can drive the Jeep. That's it. You can't shoot, throw grenades, take cover, change weapons or change position. You just drive, until the game wants you to enter an ordinary turret section in which you are supposed to shoot at the train or Nazi soldiers. You are not allowed to drive anymore. You just shoot. Whenever the level structure changes significantly because a building is falling apart or train is derailing, the game takes away player control completely until the new level structure is established. When the old church collapses or the derailing train wreaks havoc, you can't do anything but watch. And this is worth criticizing, but that's not what Uncharted does. In most cases you are in full player control regardless of the changing level structure or crazy shit going on around you. There are certain entry and exit points which are scripted, of course, but don't you dare comparing the Jeep chase of Call of Duty with Uncharted 4's Jeep chase. They may look the same, but once you get your hands on the controller, they sure as hell don't feel the same. They are from different worlds. In Uncharted you can jump from truck to truck, drive the truck, ram into other trucks, Use your grappling hook to hang on to them. Smash level architecture. You are in full control over melee combat and gunplay. The entire range of gameplay possibilities is kept intact. When the cruise ship capsizes or the train starts to slide down the mountain, you continue to traverse the level structure, now twisted, turned on its head. This is what differentiates set pieces in Naughty Dog games. This is not an easy task, but they decided to tackle and solve this Herculean task. They perfected it over the years and showed other developers how it's done. I certainly will never forget my journey with Nathan Drake. I will remember how we crossed the desolate wasteness of the Whoop Al-Khali Desert, how we first stepped into the ruins of Shambhala, or how we first met Victor Goddamn Sullivan. Experiencing incredible adventures and accompanying these characters on their personal journey, seeing them grow and fall for a decade now, made me connect to them more than with any other fictional video game character, aside from Joel and Ellie. There's a real emotional attachment involved. You cry, fear, laugh, and hope with them. As nerdy and weird as it may sound, but they really mean something to me. I, for one, am glad that Uncharted exists. Only one thing left to say: thank you, and happy birthday, Uncharted. Cheers.
So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how scared were you that I was gonna die?
4.
4?
Yeah, why?
A 4.
Yeah.
You were at least an 8.
An 8?
You were a total 8.
An 8? Those Guardian things were an 8.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, those were terrifying.
What's a 10?
Clowns?
Clowns over my death?
I hate
Clowns?
clowns. I hate clowns.
Oh my word. You thought I was dead.
No.
No, you thought I was gone.
No,
Yes,
no.
you did.
No,
I
I
saw
had you all
shed
along.
tears. You shed a bunch of them.
Tears? It was raining.
No, it was not.
You were unconscious and it was
It
raining.
was totally sunny out and you were bawling.
It wasn't sunny. You were unconscious.
Whatever. I kept your tears in a jar. I have proof.
I'll give you 5. How's that?